Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. When I was 10, I was introduced to something that my naive mind decided I was going to spend the rest of my life doing. By the age of 12, I realized that a single lack of talent will make this dream an unrealistic choice for a career. Was common sense ensure that my career went another path? I was already entangled in this web, and there was no escape. As a result, my wife doesn't know this, but I currently spend over $5,000 a year pursuing this addiction, and the costs go up every year. I drive on average 7,000 miles and take 3 plane trips a year just to satisfy the cravings. I visit the doctor at least once a year for progressively more serious injuries, and I've dedicated, on average, 10 hours a week to this passion from the age of 10 until this very last week. Initially, I thought that most Americans would not have heard of my passion, but then I thought about it, and it's not true. You'll be very much aware of it if you watch Downton Abbey, Master and Commander, The Simpsons, even Mary Poppins, along with many other Hollywood movies. If it weren't for my passion, the children in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe would never have found Narnia. Legend has it that George Washington instructed his troops to undertake my passion during breaks in the Battle of Valley Forge. John Adams introduced it into his debates, and Benjamin Franklin very kindly helped to develop the laws of this passion in the US. Ladies and gentlemen, like more than 1 billion people around the world, I'm addicted to cricket. Both as a spectator and as a player. I expect to continue playing well into my 70s and expect to be watching cricket and be a spectator until the day I die. So who here has played cricket and who here has watched cricket? A couple of hands went up. We can thank the British for this. They introduced it into the colonies in the 1800s, and we've taken great pleasure in beating the old master at their own game ever since. I won't go into details about the laws of cricket, other than to say it is somewhat like baseball, in that there is a hard ball, which is pitched, or bowled as we say in cricket, and there's a bat, which the batsman uses to hit the ball, or in many cases to defend themselves from being hit themselves. And that's pretty much where the similarity stops. There are 2 bases instead of 4 in the middle of the field, and the batsman runs back and forth between the bases. You have 1 chance to bat, 1 chance only. Once you're out, you make a mistake, you lose concentration, you're out. That's it, your chance for the game is done. Unlike baseball, though, matches can last 5 days, often with neither team winning. No triple overtimes in cricket. So you may be wondering, who has got the time or inclination to spend 5 days watching cricket? Well, that's what my American girlfriend thought too in 2008, when I took her to Newlands in Cape Town to watch a match between South Africa and Australia, who at the time were the 2 best teams in the world. We were both trying to impress, and she agreed to at least come to the first day. For 2 hours, she asked me an incessant number of questions, question after question. And by lunchtime on the first day, these 2 huge guys in front of us turned around, and they gave me this look of, we can't take one more question from your girlfriend. Either you shut her up, or someone is going to get hurt really bad. So I turned to Lee and I said, darling, I love that you're so engaged, and you want to find out about my sport, but is there any chance of sitting in silence, just for a while, so that I can enjoy the game, and preferably so I don't get hurt by these 2 large gentlemen? She said, fine. And in a huff, she pulled this out of her handbag. It's from the infamous series of books on how to bluff your way through life. She then proceeded to sit like this and read it, making a point. Now, South African cameramen at sporting events are world famous for scanning the ground and finding 2 things, pretty women and interesting scenes. And I knew it would be a matter of time before they found Lena reading this book. It would be broadcast all over the world to be seen by my family and friends. So I said to her again, darling, I love that you're reading the book. And inside I was thinking, this is fantastic, but would you mind putting a newspaper in front of it? Read it to your heart's content, but pretend you're reading the newspaper at least. She said, fine, and she did it in a huff. To her credit, she stayed for the full 5 days, although she did admit afterwards that a crush on one of the Australian players was the motivation. I won't mention his name to save mainly her blushes. So, why do adult men and women spend their very precious weekends playing cricket. We do it for two reasons. One, we like to prove to ourselves and our family and friends that we can still play a sport that is challenging and competitive. I suppose, if we're honest, various sporting failures on the field as a child contribute to this and is a motivation, but you'll never get a cricketer to admit that. You may think that cricket is just about sitting around for 5 days, doing nothing, but allow me to explain. At international level, the batsman faces the ball at 90 miles per hour plus. They have 0.3 of a second to react, decide what shot to play, and either protect themselves and their lives or score runs. The ball weighs more than half an ounce more than a baseball, is rock hard and encased in red or white leather in this case, and is truly a fearsome projectile when coming at you at 90 miles an hour from 22 yards away. Speaking to an international batsman a few years ago, he said to me that any player who claims that they're not afraid of the ball is a liar, and it's those players that overcome the fear of being hurt that become the best players. Two, and probably more importantly, we use cricket very much to build community around the world. All over the world, cricket clubs are the hub of the community. When I was living in a village outside London, we'd start every Saturday over the summer, start at noon, play until dusk, and all the wives and girlfriends and cousins and aunts and uncles and members of the village would come down and they'd catch up with old friends and they'd all see each other. And it very much was a community spirit. We'd go out in the evenings and we'd have beers and have dinner. Whenever I travel anywhere in the world, into any nation who plays cricket, I try to always play one game. And I see the exact same sense of community no matter where I am in the world. The only difference is, in the UK, you go down to the pub, in the Caribbean, you sit by the ground afterwards and eat jerk chicken or drink Banks beer or Red Stripe beer. So here are 3 reasons why it's not just about the love of the game. It's also about what the game represents to all of us. Cricket is one of the very few sports in the world that is very much about the individual, but is played within a team environment. I learned at a very young age that when you're batting, it is you against the bowler, one-on-one. No one can help you, no one can support you. If you fail, it's entirely because of yourself. However, without your teammates, you cannot succeed. Just as in the work environment, projects will fail when teammates are unsupportive. So it is in cricket. 2, cricket is a sport where the strongest, fittest, most competitive or most talented team is certainly not assured of victory. I love how, as a metaphor for life, hard work and determination can overcome a plethora of shortcomings, where David can regularly slay Goliath with a little luck, cunning, skill, ingenuity, overconfidence by the favored opposition, and fortune playing their part. I love how a 65-year-old can outwit a cocky 18-year-old at cricket, learning lessons that he himself learned when he was 18 and he was outwitted by a 65-year-old. Not many 65-year-old grandpas can beat an 18-year-old at basketball, ice hockey, or soccer. Third, and probably most importantly, cricket unites people. I was born in South Africa in the mid-1970s. I grew up in the 1980s in a society very much segregated by race. South Africa is a country that is dominated by race, has always been, and still is. Multiple people commented to me over the years that South Africa is one of the very few countries where race is used as the very first identifier. When I first heard this, I denied it. Surely that can't be true. But thinking about myself and how everybody interacts with each other, it very much is true. People self-identify as black or white or colored if you're of mixed race. And it's totally common to refer to that white woman sitting on the chair or that black man standing by the corner. Whilst the notion of a rainbow nation is proving a tough reality to implement, it is now totally normal for my 5-year-old nephew to start a game of beach cricket with everybody of all races and colors and creeds. What seemed impossible to a child in the 1980s growing up in South Africa is now entirely normal. This is permeated through to our national team, where players of all colors and creeds are selected not just on the color of their skin, but on their ability. It has helped South Africa to become the #1 team in the world and made our national team even stronger. Our under-19 team won the World Cup a few months ago in Dubai, and as you can see, this integration is even better than it was a few years ago. If all nations could unite like cricket, the world would be a far more peaceful place. Much has been documented on how when Pakistan played India for the first time after their 4 wars, there was the very first sign of thawing between the tension in those 2 countries. I play for a team in Boston called the Colonial Cavaliers. We have players of all nations and religions from countries such as England, Australia, India, New Zealand, Bangladesh, Jamaica, South Africa, even the US, and many other countries. We all grew up in very different cultures, speak very different languages, and have certainly very different views of the world. But the common language of cricket has drawn us all together from all over the world. It unites us in a way that the United Nations could only dream of. There is such a bond between us that I regularly travel up to Boston just to play cricket and to see the team. If only Israel and Palestine play cricket. However, if none of the above has convinced you to try something that you've never thought of trying before, listen to the advice my mother gave. On the evening of my wedding, to the very same young lady who a few years previously I'd taken to Cape Town to watch 5 days of cricket, she started to explain why watching cricket to my 19-year-old, very American future sister-in-law would be a good idea. She explained to her that in the 1950s and 60s, growing up in South Africa, it certainly wasn't fashionable, it wasn't thought of for young women to stare at young men. She said, though, by going to cricket matches, and I quote, "I just love staring at those athletic young men running around the field in tight white clothing. It's such a sensual game, darling." Thank you, ladies and